Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Michael Finney. Today, I am joined again by our friend, author, antenna physicist, and engineer, as well as the organizer of the Based book sale, Hans Schantz. Would you like to say hello, sir?
Certainly, and thanks so much for having me on your show again.
You know, this is the third time that you've been on. I think you might have the record for one-on-one interviews right now, currently.
Well, looking forward to having a great one and maybe being on again sometime.
You know, that's the thing about these check-ins when we reconnect. And this is the thing that I found, because I've been doing a lot of these lately, and I've been doing it for a number of years now. The first time a guest comes on, it's very introductory, and we're feeling out the pacing, the rapport. You know, this is now our third time. This will be much more conversational and kind of like hanging out. And we have hung out, as it turns out. I think that was in between the last time you were on the program. We caught up in person. I believe it was in September when you were coming back from SpeakerCone in Michigan. So, you know, gosh, you know, I feel like I really know you a lot now, you know?
It's always wonderful to meet an online acquaintance in person and to discover that the in-person persona lives up to the online persona.
Yeah, I agree. So let's do a little bit of recap, because it's been a while since we talked on the air. And I like I said, I think that was last summer. You know, don't put my back to the wall if I don't have the dates specific. I think it was just before you were opening up the Kickstarter for Fields and Energy. But since then, you know, X number of based book sales, seasonal runs, some niche sales. We're now in a new year. Why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown, a recap of the performance for the based book sale last year, and maybe some of the numbers, some of the results, anything that you feel is pertinent, relevant, or celebratory, really.
Sure. Well, we had a great year on the based book sale site for 2025. We ended up with a total of around 12,500 books moved. And of course, those are the sales that are reported through my affiliate link. One of the problems that perennially pops up when you use affiliate links is there are a lot of link hijackers out there, like browser extensions people add, and under the promise of getting some money back. Of course, the way they're getting the money to give you back is by hijacking other people's Amazon links and then sharing it with you and keeping some of it. So the actual number of sales is probably at least 50% higher than that.
Think so. Wow. That is...
Well, every time I sit down with an author and I say, well, you know, I record that you sold, 35 books in the last sale, they'll say, oh, I sold 50. So, usually authors are reporting 50 to as much as 100% more sales. It kind of depends on how much they're scrambling to do their own promotion and advertising on their own channels that aren't going through the based book site. If they do that, yeah, they're going to get a lot of sales that I wouldn't necessarily have any visibility on.
Right. But you know what? Either way, let's just highlight what we can. And 12,000 books for a very grassroots street team, boots on the ground sort of effort of what is approximately, I think you've mentioned before, about 100 authors, but probably more now. But that was something that you had quoted to me in the past. Let's say there's maybe 150 authors, right? And to be able to do the social campaign and drive the sales of books, discounted or not, right? To their audience, to their following, to their readers, and the readers of others. it is a remarkable feat, really. I think anybody that's participating that I've heard from is always very happy with the results, whatever they might be.
Yeah, we do a very good job of selling books. One of the things that's very interesting is usually in this kind of a marketing situation, there is a really, steep kind of Pareto distribution where 20% of the books get 80% of the sales and so forth. But you can look at the distribution, and we'll have a couple really strong sellers, but then it's the just a sale or two separating everyone on the ranking charts. So it's really interesting seeing how every book is almost every book is getting at least a few sales, and most of them are getting you know a good number of them, the majority of them are getting well up into double digit kinds of sales.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, for me, it's been fantastic too. I only have some short stories and essays and things like that I've put in. I don't have a novel, but all the same, the audience, the participants have supported my stuff. I appreciate it. It's been fantastic. And additionally, to be able to do, some of the niche sales, organize them and put them on, it's helped me to kind of map out the landscape more. The authors that are participating know people in the scene, right, get exposure to not only the mechanisms kind of out there driving traffic for the thing, but to know the people, as it is. And shout out to Raconteur Press. I have connected with them and have been doing, podcast spots once a month with their stable of authors. So I think that there's a great opportunity to extend the brand and the relationships and the network even beyond what you have so far. So let's talk about, the beginning of this year. I know you've been sick, but at the same time, I think that the first sale of the year went pretty well, all considering.
Yeah, we ended up with about 2,000 books moved in the first sale, a little more than that, maybe 2,100. That's just a little less. Forgive me, I still have a little bit of my cough from the pneumonia I had a few weeks ago. Um, we It's a little lower than I would expect. Normally, our quarterly sales, when I really get in there and push it, are up around 2,500. So that's my nominal target. We were a little bit shy because I basically did no promotion until the very end when I was able to do the top 10 books sold so far post and try to reinforce the success that some of our more popular authors were having. And the other issue is I'm normally much more aggressive about, in addition to putting in the books whose authors have gone into the comments and specifically asked me to include, I normally go back through books that have been in past sales, and if the book's still 99 cents, so I just go ahead and roll it in anyway, even though the author hasn't uh, uh, specifically requested or nominated their book for inclusion in the sale. So with fewer books, inevitably there are going to be fewer sales. So those are the two factors that probably ended up having the sales be a little light. But I was very encouraged how strong the sales were, despite those limitations. We had Sarah Hoyt, for instance, ended up her book ended up the number 2 seller in the sale, and she did a nice job promoting us on Instapundit and drove a fair bit of traffic. There was a good bit of traffic from Twitter from all the contributions of the authors busily pushing the sale on their own social media. But a lot of it is now getting organic to the sale. We have a good 2,600 people or so subscribed to the Substack, getting the email updates of the sale. So uh, that's doing a lot of our marketing for us, just having that built-in audience that is subscribed, that is expecting the sale, that gets the emails and is notified to come take a look and check out everything that's going on. So the growth has really been pretty phenomenal, just year over year. I think we've almost about 75% or so increase in the number of subscribers from the beginning of 2025. So we're seeing some really nice growth, a lot of awareness about the based book sale. And I think it's really evolving and developing into what may well be the premier online crowdsourced listing of the best books in the indie space that are available. Because when you've got 10,000 individual purchase decisions from readers going into your ranking of the books, you've got a lot of crowdsourced wisdom on what are the strongest books in the sale.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the organic buy-in in regards to the based book sale and the growth that's happening there, and specifically in relationship to the anthology that you have let us kind of attach to the name. I realize you don't necessarily have your finger on the pulse of everything that's going on there, but at the same time, the audience that is, subscribed or following wherever, that might be, the response to the call for writers was incredible. I don't want to say that it was overwhelming, but the the result of it was that we ended up with about 50 or more queries in approximately a week and a half, to the point where we had to close down queries because there were not only, like I said, 50 or 60 queries, but also we already have received, I think, maybe 13 to 15 finished stories. In that,
oh, wow.
Yeah, right. And that's from, I don't remember when I posted that. I think it was like a couple of days before your call for authors for the spring sale, which would have made it like the first week of February. So I feel bad having to have closed it down and to have turned people away that are sending in queries. But the truth of it is that, like, it's already plenty of work that we have to do, not only in terms of responding to people messaging us, but the ladies, Jaji and Heidi, they're doing that first round of review on the submissions that we already have in, and the due date for stories is not until May 3rd. So they have plenty to do as it is, and they've been kind of very busily putting together the strategy on evaluation of all that stuff. And then, we're looking forward to all of the other stories that get turned in. I suspect we'll get maybe 40 more stories. I don't know. The people were ravenous about responding and getting to us. So I really think that the audience of, I don't want to necessarily say the base book sales audience is authors, but there are a lot of authors that participate, and they have been very clearly eager to participate in an anthology that will be attached to the base book sale, that will be able to basically become a component and product of the sales kind of moving forward, that'll always be there. And to be able to say that they were included, we're now having to strategize about how to deal with just the overwhelming response of stories, to the point where it's like, okay, well, we were hoping, gosh, maybe we'd get 10 submissions, and we blew past that. Day right. One blew right past that. So we're now trying to think about, well, what if we do more than one anthology? Maybe we kind of split things off into a fantasy collection and a sci-fi collection, or maybe other types of ways of partitioning things, because we do want as many people as possible to be included and to be able to participate in this, and to be able to, stand next to this release and say, I'm in it. We want people to be able to do that. We also want to be able to enjoy the process of doing all this, and not be necessarily stressed about
Right.
how much work there is. So there's that side of things. And the other thing too is like, I personally want to get this thing out, or both of these things out, or three of these things out, whatever, before the end of the year. I don't want this to be something that lingers on for a long time. So I'm very glad that, we've kind of got a team effort going with it. And, just to kind of catch you up on some of what we've been developing and, what's been going on there. But I think that everything's been really positive, and I am looking forward to being able to read a lot of the stuff that comes in, and look forward to being able to put out a really cool product, a really cool collection of stories that feature the authors, that people know from the sale or would maybe benefit to know more.
Well, I think that's a great idea. And yeah, I was completely out of the loop on it between being sick and just barely being able to get the sale over the finish line. So I'm really pleased that you found a nice adjunct project that contributes to the overall based book mission. And I mean, I know there are a number of anthologies that have driven enough interest to actually support series and multiple volumes of entries in the anthology series. We regularly feature the Shoot the Devil line of horror anthologies, and I think they're up to 3 editions of that. Basically, short stories on defeating demonic or satanic evil, which I think is an interesting premise. The Relic short story collection that you're proposing, I mean, it sounds like you could easily support a couple of issues in a series anthology. And I think I'd be delighted to have the base book sale associated with that, and be doing more of those anthologies if there's enough interest from the authors and enough of a willingness, from you and Jaji or anyone else who wants to serve as an editor, because that is an awful lot of work to take those stories and sort through them and pull them all together and turn them into a credible anthology. But congratulations on that success, and I'm looking forward to seeing how far you and your team can take it.
Yeah, me too. And I appreciate you letting us do it. So let's hear about 2026, maybe other plans you have. I know that the anthology idea kind of snuck up on us and we just pitched it to you. You've been very cool about letting us do it, but maybe there's other things you have in mind, or other relationships you're looking to kind of develop, or original work. I know last year, you were working on Fields and Energy. I believe this year you also have a follow-up in that series.
Right. In my personal writing, I am putting installments of my Fields and Energy. It's a trilogy up on my Substack at etherzar.substack.com, AETHERCZAR.substack.com. I've got all of book one up there. That's the book that we did the crowdfund on last August, and I got that fulfilled and distributed to all the backers, and then did the release on Amazon in December. Uh, Book two is about 80% or so complete, just in terms of the material that's already been posted onto the Substack. So I'm hoping to get that pushed over the finish line and be able to launch a crowd fund to do some advanced sales on that this summer. Now that is a nonfiction project, and we do have some nonfiction entries in the sale, but I decided I would keep that one kind of separate. It's got its own dedicated Substack, so I'm not really pushing that through the based book sale. What I'm planning to do on the based book sale, of course, is continue with the 3 more of those quarterly sales. I know there have been some ideas for some more niche sales. We had some really successful niche sales. The books for men sale went over very well last August, about the same time we last spoke. I know Jaji is talking about doing a romance sale. It'll be very interesting. One of the big issues in publishing today is the fact that mainstream publishing tends to focus on books written for women and adding romance elements to stories and so forth. So that makes books specifically for men a big feature and fixture within the indie scene in general and the based book scene in particular. It'll be very interesting to see how a sale that is focused primarily at women and is featuring a lot of romance and more books of feminine interest, how that will fare. But that's something we'll discover here. I guess in June, the plan is to have that niche sale right after our summer kickoff sale over the Memorial Day weekend. So we'll continue doing the niche book sales in addition to the quarterly sales, and just see if we can continue growing it. One big goal that I'd like to achieve is, I mean, there are a lot of very good small presses out there that are working with a lot of our authors and are actually contributing books to the sale. Outfits like Raconteur. We've had Arc Press author in. I know Tuscany Bay authors have been in, and there are a handful of other publishers that I'm forgetting at the moment. And I think it would be very interesting to get the publishers aware that by looking at the top sellers in the based book sale, that's probably highlighting some authors they might want to reach out to and see if they'd be interested in working with them and developing further a relationship. Because if you've demonstrated that you have a solid book with a good blurb and a good cover, and that's drawing a lot of interest, that bodes well for future work from an author who has that kind of demonstrated success in the based book sale.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like we've kind of hit all the highlights, all of the notable pieces in terms of recapping 2025, revisiting the beginning of this year, talking about the anthology, looking at what you're working on to release, personally into your catalog this year. Are there any things that we haven't touched on that you would like to?
Well, I'm so appreciative of all of the authors and readers who participate in the based book sale. I make the sale. I do the sale as a service. I use affiliate links, so I do get a kickback from the each sale. Typically, 4% is the nominal affiliate rate that I get. So I make 4 cents every time I sell one of those books, and it adds up. But what I really appreciate is, despite the fact that I make the sale free and open, that there are a lot of people who are contributing money just because they support the mission and want to keep us going. And I particularly appreciate that aspect. So I want to make sure I specifically give a shout out to all the paid subscribers who are supporting us, because one of the things that has become very clear is it's very difficult to make a living as an author just off the sale of your books. You really need to have patrons who are supporting your writing in particular, and supporting the based book mission of helping us provide a forum for authors to share their stuff and make their works available and provide them with some publicity. So I really appreciate all the people who are stepping up and serving as patrons to support not just the based book sale, but also all the based authors in particular, supporting their Substacks, supporting their crowd funds and their Patreons or their Buy Me a Coffee. I think that's a very important part of having a successful and thriving alternate indie based book community.
Absolutely. Hans, thank you for taking the time. Great conversation. Great to catch up. And we will talk again before too long.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.